Here to discuss all of today's events is Oscar's friend, Mike Kendrick, and the former editor of the South African newspaper, Heather Walker. Good evening to you both. Mike, as Julian said there, this trial is far from over. We don't know what verdicts the judge will reach tomorrow, but today she's found him not guilty of murder. Some small solace, would you think?
I think it's a huge relief for Oscar to be found not guilty of premeditated murder. You know, he always maintained, and I think the verdict was quite predictable from that point of view. It was difficult to imagine, if you knew Oscar, him killing someone on purpose, by design.
We all felt we knew him before this. He's a Paralympic hero, a South African legend, really. He now seems like a shadow of his former self, whatever happens.
He's a broken man. Anyone that goes through this, of course, it has a huge effect on them psychologically. He's a completely different person. He's completely broken.
And Heather, what does this do for South Africa? It's been an eventful sort of 18 months since this happened. Of course, the father of the nation, Nelson Mandela, dying as well. How do South Africans see their future?
Well, I mean, it has been a tumultuous few months. We also had our national elections in May, our first elections without Mandela, and then obviously this Pistorius issue. So I suppose there may be people asking questions, but we're looking at things like the police and their role. You know, the Marikana massacre is still rolling on in terms of an inquest. So people are looking at the police and, you know, their role in South Africa. They're looking at who do we look up to. So there certainly are issues, but at the same time, I think South Africans are so used to this very violent society that they almost don't question things. But what they might be questioning is it because Oscar Pistorius is a celebrity that he's getting special treatment? And
because this trial has progressed pretty quickly by South African standards, do you think that's the reason? And do you think the fact that the world is focusing on it has made a difference to the outcome so far?
I think it possibly has. I mean, I think when you've got the eyes of the world on you, you want to show that you've got a swift justice system and that it works well. And I suppose there has been a certain amount of pressure on the South African government to keep the case in the forefront of the justice system.
And just briefly, people here looking at South Africa's gun laws will shake their head in disbelief. Surely things have to change there after this.
Well, to a certain extent, the gun laws are actually better than they used to be. So we've seen some progress over the last few years, which is at least something. You know, fewer people are actually allowed to own guns, and you have to have a very good reason to own more than one gun. As Oscar was applying for several licenses because he wanted to be a collector. The average person certainly arming themselves is quite a big debate in South Africa, because people say that, you know, you're actually putting yourself more at risk by owning a gun. Then other people say, well, you know, everybody has a right to arm themselves in a very violent society. So it's going to take a while for that issue to come to a head. But I do think that it has raised the issue, which is important.
Mike, back to you to talk about Oscar the man. I mean, ironic, isn't it? The Invictus Games going on at the moment. Many of those athletes at one point or another will have looked up to him, you know, as a disabled athlete. Do you think he can ever bounce back now he's being cleared of killing Reeva Steenkamp with any intent?
I'm worried about that. You know, I think his mind is so shattered by this. I think it would be difficult for him to compete again. I really am worried about that. When you've gone through the trauma as he has, not forgetting the effects on Reeva and her family, of course, but as a man, he's shattered, and I don't think he will be able to compete again. Imagine walking into an arena of 100,000 people. Well, half of them are not going to like you anymore. It's a difficult thing to do.
Mike, Heather, thank you both very much.